Welcome back to Stradimoto. What a beautiful day to be out driving around on the motorbike. Here she is, by the way, guys, in case you didn't get a good look of her. The VTR 250, for those that actually care. I bet that's none of you, seeing as it's mainly just my friends and family that are watching Stradimoto and not those that are actually really interested in motorcycles. But that's alright, you know. So there's been a bit of a delay in uploading and I missed a week. My camera unfortunately ran out of battery mid-vlog, so not too good at all. But hey, we're back up and rolling again, so there's nothing to complain about now. Battery's fresh, the air is fresh, the bike is nearly out of fuel. Last time I actually wanted to talk a bit about TV shows, and Westworld in particular, because that's a TV show I've been watching recently. I've actually already seen season 1. I watched it about half a year ago, maybe a bit more, and but I've decided to watch Westworld again with my flatmate, and it's a great time. Westworld is a pretty awesome show. It's mature, so definitely only for mature audiences. I don't want to promote it for the youngins. Obviously, not the best show ever made. Avatar: The Last Airbender is probably a better show. Okay, well, maybe with a healthy dose of nostalgia, Avatar: The Last Airbender is the best show. Yeah. There you go. Hey. Just like with any really engaging, interesting TV show, film, book, or whatever, I think the most interesting, the most thought-provoking are ones that are representing philosophical dilemmas. Westworld represents many philosophical dilemmas in one big bundle. The premise of Westworld is that technology has gotten to a point where we're able to simulate artificial intelligences that cannot be distinguished from humans. They've bundled these artificial intelligences, these processes, into a human-like body. They've injected this fake body with fake blood, all in a laboratory, have dressed it in fake clothes from a costume department, and then have written stories and placed these bodies that house these artificial intelligences, aka these hosts, into these narratives or these stories. Whoa, bro, you gotta chill. And then real persons, as in persons that were born through normal, regular human procreation, can then pay exorbitant amounts of money. I think it's quoted at like 40k a day or something, to participate in this. I was gonna say virtual reality, but it's not. It's not a virtual reality at all. While the hosts may not be humans, they might be artificially created, it's still very real, are physical. But they can be manipulated and controlled just like any system can be. They can have their memory wiped, they can have their personality adjusted, but they have the appearance of feeling pain. I think one would contend that they actually do feel pain, regardless of the fact that their memory might be wiped, so that they cannot recollect feeling pain. So Westworld is really only tangentially connected to questions of reality and discerning reality from fiction. But it's a question that was actually raised by Robert Nozick, who used to be the president of the American Philosophical Association back in the day, who was a Harvard scholar. And he raised this question. What was the book? State, Utopia and Anarchy. It pretty much described a machine which could simulate, through using a supercomputer of some sort, a virtual reality indistinguishable from this one, in which things were just a bit better. Your life was good overall. Well, your life might be good right now as well, and mine is for sure, and I hope yours is as well. That car sets the standard for all of those cars to go into the incorrect lane, but they're actually meant to be going in the far left lane. But I guess there's no other vehicles in the way, so what are you going to do? But anyway, so in this experience machine, you have the experience of achieving great things through great hardship. It actually paints a world in which you can reach the summit of Mount Everest, and you can feel like you've actually persevered through the death zone of Mount Everest, where oxygen levels are so thin that you might be on the brink of death, and it actually feels like you've, got frostbitten legs and you're actually working at your hardest. You feel the satisfaction of accomplishing something so immensely difficult without actually having to do it. You don't actually have to climb Mount Everest. It might plonk you right on top of Mount Everest with the memory of having climbed up the summit, but not the reality of actually having climbed up the summit. So Robert Nozick actually presented this experience machine as a bit of a refutation of hedonism. We've talked about hedonism in episode 2, and it's something that is often talked about in utilitarianism theories, but also just wider philosophy. So Robert Nozick presented this argument and pretty much answered his own question, which was, would you plug in? So he presented this machine and then asked, would you plug in? And his assumption was that you would say no. His assumption was that the vast majority of his readers would say no, and those that didn't say no might be truly hedonistic utilitarians, or some form of that kind of theory, but that most of us aren't really, and therefore hedonism is largely false, because the majority of people don't actually subscribe to it. So this is what I call paradigmatic armchair philosophy, really. He was partaking of something I would consider armchair philosophy, and it's something that many critics of philosophy, or many meta-philosophers, so meta-philosophers don't answer or ask questions relating to the nature of our world, or how we ought to treat each other, or what this existence is like, but they ask and answer questions relating to the nature of philosophy itself, how we ought to make philosophical arguments, how we ought to make claims, all of that. That's what meta means. It's within itself. So from the perspective of meta-philosophy, I think Robert Nozick was performing many fallacies in his argument. He never actually did any empirical research whatsoever to find out how many people would actually plug in or not. He simply made the assumption. He maybe asked a few of his Harvard graduates, or probably just his colleagues or some such, like, hey, what do you think about this book? And hey, he was the frickin' president of their society, so maybe they didn't want to disagree with him. Who knows? Robert Nozick was partaking of armchair philosophy because he didn't actually ask anyone or do any empirical research or data analysis to find out whether people would actually plug into his so-called experience machine or not. He simply made the assumption. It's called armchair philosophy because he was in his armchair making claims about how the world is without actually going outside and finding out how the world really is. If scientists did this, then they would get, totally destroyed. A primary function of science is that it explains the natural world, and in order to do that, you need to make observations of the natural world, and you can't do that from an armchair. Well, actually, okay, maybe you can do that from an armchair. Perhaps if you're doing some form of, biology or chemistry, you could just, get some cells in a petri dish, or, mix some alkalines and some bases, whatever it might be. But hey, on the whole, you gotta make some observations of the wider picture, you know, and the wider world. So Robert Nozick wasn't doing that, and he wrote State, Utopia, and Anarchy. Where am I going? The experience machine, I should also explain it in greater detail. It is a machine in which there is no possibility of technological malfunction and no possibility of the scientists that run the machine to become corrupt, maybe form a cult and want to keep you in there for nefarious purposes, what have you. There's no possibility of experimentation on your body or what it might be, but you're in the machine for I think about 2 years, and then you're able to come out of the machine for 10 hours and tweak things if they weren't quite to your liking. There's no question the machine is going to be better than your current reality, but maybe you just want to have a bit more challenge here, maybe you want to have a bit less of whatever it might be here, so you're not locked into it forever. And there's also, imagine that the machine, there's also the premise that the machine is available to everyone, anyone and everyone, so you don't need to worry about leaving your family or friends behind. Just assume that they're plugging in as well. Because this machine fundamentally was meant to refute the claim that the prime good is pleasure, which was the hedonistic claim, that was the good that all actions ought to surmount to. And so that was the refutation that Nozick was trying to aim for, because he was claiming that people actually prefer to be certain things, not simply to have the experience of being things, and they prefer to do certain things without having the experience of doing things. He messed up that sentence. And he also claimed that people don't want to limit themselves to a man-made reality. And so in his argument, he was claiming primarily that people prefer reality over pleasure, even if reality might come with all of the nasty little things and the irksome details of everyday life in this world. People still prefer for it to be real rather than for it to be fake but good. So Philippe de Brigard comes along and presents the same thought experiment with a few knobs twisted. It's no longer a question of whether you're going to plug in or not. It's no longer a question of whether you're going to forfeit reality for opting for a man-made existence in which life is, you know, overall better than this one. It's now a question of whether you will plug out. Consider that this is the machine. If we are in a simulation right now, and hey, simulation theory is something that many very intelligent people actually do subscribe to, that we're in some sort of simulation, we're in a computer somehow, some way or another. So it's not all ridiculous, I'll have you know. And so that was what de Brigard was going for, was that consider this is the man-made reality. Because remember, you said it yourself, Nozick, it's indistinguishable. I'm getting excitable. It's indistinguishable. Wow, okay. From actual reality. There's no way you could possibly distinguish it between your already pre-existing life. So consider this is the machine. So Philippe de Brigard presented a few vignettes to try and present this thought experiment in a different light. He said that if you do plug out, you're going back to either three alternatives. You're going back to an alternative in which it's your ideal life. Woo! Yeah. They present a vignette in which your real life, the life that you're about to plug out to, is your ideal life. So he or she, they claim that it's you're a rich billionaire living on the coast of Monaco or something. And obviously that might not sound appealing to everyone. Some people might prefer friends and family over money, and so yeah, that makes sense. That might not be the life that you would prefer, and it probably wouldn't be the life that I'd prefer. Personally, I'd like to be, you know, snuggled up in bed more often than watching Grand Prix. But regardless, that was one of the vignettes. All they're trying to say is that it's a good life, okay? Like, you don't have to worry about many things, and you're happy. There's another option that it is the worst possible life. I think the one in the paper is you're in a top security prison in West Virginia, I don't know why it's that particularly, but that's what it is. Pretty much saying that, I mean, and you're going to be there forever. You're serving a life in prison. Pretty much saying that there's no hope for you. You're going to experience terrible things. Life is going to be tedious and dull and full of incredible hardship. So that's another option. And then there's the middle ground. There's the neutral position, where, you know, it's just a bit worse than your current existence. And from this, Philippe de Brigard was able to actually perform empirical philosophy and, you know, and survey people and see what do they prefer, what would they prefer in those situations. And they found that rich Monaco vignette and neutral position vignette got like a 50-50 reaction. About half of those surveyed opted to remain plugged into the machine, while the other half opted to plug out of the machine. Whereas the West Virginia maximum security life imprisonment, that presented a very different reaction, and that actually had more of a 80-20 to 90-10 people opting to stay within the machine. And I'll have you know that, oh my gosh, I'm going the wrong way, is what I'll have you know. When surveyed, those that answered to opt out of the machine, even when presented with a destitute life on the outside, were more often than not, so most of the time, they were actually falling victim to some misunderstandings of what the machine was. Most of their responses as to why did you choose to opt out were actually responses that should have nothing to do with the thought experiment at all, were responses that Robert Nozick had tried to make clear wouldn't be a problem. So they were responses like, you know, I'm going to be able to tell which one's real, and I'll miss my friends and family, or I'm scared that it's going to break down and I'm going to be stuck in there or something. So they were actually falling victim to misunderstanding about what the actual machine gave them. And so it's really interesting when you look at it, because it shows that the primary fundamentals are still the same. They're still opting for either a life of pleasure or a real life, and it shows incredibly different results when you ask it for the plug out option. And I think it's mainly because people prefer the status quo. When people are presented two separate insurance companies, for example, and they've just insurance company A, insurance company B, they've just, you know, hidden all identification markers. When people are presented two insurance companies and are presented every detail about the certain policies that they provide and are asked which one they prefer, even if the participant prefers insurance company B, once they find out that insurance company A is the insurance company that they are currently with, they'll opt not to switch. Because people generally prefer to stay right where they are, even if there is a better option knocking on their door. Even if the grass is greener on the other side of the hill, people actually like to just keep stuff the same. Robert Nozick ended up falling short of his initial claims, and it was actually an unconvincing argument for me in the end, especially because at first, when presented this argument, and when I understood the premises behind it, that it's not going to break down, it's going to be indistinguishable, you don't need to worry about your friends and family, nothing will come in the way of you having a great experience exactly as you intend, but you won't even know that you're the one that intended it, I said yes. I said I would plug in. So his argument, of course, at first glance was unconvincing to me, because he made the assumption that everyone would say no to the would you plug in question. So that's why I delved deeper, tried to figure out exactly what was going on behind his argument. It's not that people prefer reality to these simulations. It's simply that they prefer the status quo. They just don't want to change shit, you know? If stuff can just stay the same, that'd be good. And that's exactly why people like to go to a theme park like Westworld. A world in which their consequences don't matter and they can experience all sorts of pleasure while they're there. there is no consequences. But the question of technical malfunction, well, that might be one that you might have to consider if presented the option. Westworld as a place is full of super intelligent computers which are wrapped up in a human-like casing. This synthetic flesh and synthetic blood through their synthetic veins. But it's all presented to appear, feel, and look like real human. And then they're put into narratives which are pre-written by other humans. And play out these imaginary stories. And people are able to participate in these stories in any way they will. Just as similar to modern video games. You can partake of side missions at will, or you can focus on the primary campaign. It's a bit of a nerdy comparison, but that's pretty much an extension of the exact same thing. And right now, me being a delivery driver is my side mission. I'm doing this to get a bit of loot, if you will, while my main campaign is get my degree, probably. Well, my overall campaign might be to, live a good life, fulfilling life in which I enrich the lives of others around me, but my next checkpoint would be to graduate. And so I appreciate you watching me while I've got this side hustle. And with that, I might bid you adieu. Thanks for watching as always. Thanks for hitting the like button if you're one of those people. I feel like I'm pretty happy with my ratio of the amount of people that actually watch the video to the amount of people that like it. But hey, I just can't wait to break that 100 milestone subscribers. We are 23% of the way there, so thanks to those 23 people. Again, sorry it was a delay between the last video and this one. My camera died mid-vlog, so I had to reshoot the whole thing. But anyway, thanks for watching another episode of Striding Moto. As usual, stay safe, I love you, and I'll see you next week.